As a tribute to working people everywhere, I wrote a song called Uncle Joe. And that song is now number 33 on the country main chart. Feel so blessed by that.
So, was there any particular teacher or any particular class that you felt like made a huge difference for you?
Well, there were bits and pieces along the way. One time we had John Ems, and he wrote a lot of great hit songs. The one that Trish Yearwood did, I'm trying to think. She's in Love with the Boy. He wrote that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, one of the things he said, always keep this kind of boneyard or trash pile, whatever you want to call it, of phrases and things like that, and don't worry about this being such a. I was pretty rigid in the way that I approached things. Every song I thought I was going to write had to be a hit song, and he said, don't do that. Keep everything in. Just keep everything, all your ideas, because you may have a really good idea, but it's just not ready to germinate, and you can just pull from that boneyard, and it's a chaotic process. And as it turns out, that's really true. That's how it is for me. Of course, our songwriting association used to put on the Sonny Throckmorton Songwriter Festival. We did that for 4 years, and Sonny Throckmorton wrote 18 number one hits in country market in the 1980s and 90s. So we were blessed to have that influence, and just a number of other songwriters that we were around that would come and do seminars. It that helps you focus, and it helps you figure out what you're doing right, because everybody's doing something right, and everybody's doing something that can be improved. Mm-hmm. And that's no different for me now than it was then.
That's kind of the human being experience.
That's a human being experience. So you have to pay attention when people who are very successful are talking, because they do know what they're talking about. So I tried to pay attention as much as I could.
Yes, learn from other people's successes as well as their mistakes. Right?
That's right.
And, it's interesting you should say that about the bone pile, because it reminds me that not too long ago I was going to a meeting, and I won't go into all the details about what it was, but I was looking for something to take to that meeting, a specific thing, and couldn't find it. But I ran across the paperwork for a workshop I had created a number of years ago, which never actually happened. Mm-hmm. But I looked at that and I went, oh my God, this is perfect for this meeting. Yeah. This is better than what I put together. As it is. It's perfect. And so I took that, and it was just, so that's really good advice, just sometimes things are created before they're actually ready to come out into the world.
Yes, I think that's true. I had a song on my first CD called "Cruel and Usual Punishment." I had the line, and
that's
I had that
great line.
I had that line for 5 years, and then I wrote a song around it. So that's just an example of how that can work.
Mm-hmm. I take it that was about a not so good relationship. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. My wife one time stood up and said, I just want you. I was getting ready to play this song. I think it was in a songwriting round on one of Ken Gaines' things at Anderson Fair. Or after I played it, she said, I just want all of you to know that we've been happily married for over 30 years.
No matter what he sings.
No matter what he sings.
Yeah, I knew that.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a lovey-dovey song. No. But that's okay.
They can't all be.
They can't all be,
there's too many. You got to hit all the emotions sooner or later, don't you think?
I think so.
To keep a balance.
That's right.
Okay. So if we were to put you in a genre, it would be folk?
Well, it's kind of folk / Americana with a little bit of country thrown into it. Probably is the best description. But probably. In analyzing what I do, I guess, even though there's sort of this Americana theme flowing through, it's probably folk would be the key.
Okay. And when we think about folk music, and you said it earlier, your songs all have a story, which is not true of all songs. They have a message sometimes, but not really a story. But when we get into more folk type music, that's kind of the common denominator. Is that the songs do have a story,
right?
And one of the reasons I love folk music, actually. And
thank you.
And you said also that, and I think this is so true of music today, that makes it so exciting, is there's a lot of bleeding over between genres. It used to be that things were pretty well, you were either country or you were blues or,
Right.
very, very defined categories for music. And that just doesn't happen so much anymore, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think the reason for that is because of the sort of the demise of the major part of the music industry, which used to separate these categories so they'd have well-defined categories. And so that if you were in between one of those categories, you may or may not, you may
you
or
literally
may not
fall through the cracks.
Fall through the cracks. Whereas now, there is room for everybody, and you do have a lot of cross-pollination. And here's the way I look at it. When I write a song, I'm not writing a blues song. I'm not writing a country song. I'm not writing a folk song. I'm not writing something for the Americana market or for the AAA market. I'm just writing a song.
Right.
And that song certain elements of that song may move me to one genre or another, but I don't like to be limited by that, because I'd rather write a great song that as opposed to try to write something to fit a market.
No, absolutely. And I think that's why this crossover and this bleeding has happened, is because, writing songs is a creative process. And creative processes don't do well when they're put into boxes.
No, they don't.
They really tend to have little snits about that.
That's right.
Which I think is good.
I do too.
So good for you. So do you ever think about? Well, let me ask you first, because we talked about you creating your ideal life with what you do, your music and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to give you my magic wand, and you were to wave it, where would you be playing? What type of arena would you be playing in? Who would be in the audience? What would that process look and feel like? So we can just conjure it up for you.
Okay. Wow. Well, I think everybody would like to play a real large major venue. Whether that ever happens for me or not, I have no idea.
Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think everybody wants to do that.
Well, you may. Yeah, you're right. I'd love to do that.
Okay, that's a good thing.
But I really enjoy playing for audiences that are smaller, that I can connect with, because I think my music is at its best when I'm in that kind of format.
When you can really connect on that level.
On that level, but I would be lying if I said I didn't want to play some large venue somewhere.
So you want to be able to do both?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to be able to do both.
Because I have to tell you, I think there are some artists out there who get to the point where they only play large venues, and they're not particularly happy with that. Because I think, then they're in this record deal and they can't play, without
yeah, right.
And they get stuck,
right,
in a particular thing that everybody thinks they should be real happy with, but they're not necessarily happy there.
That's right. That's right. And so I'm just, as I said earlier, for me, this having this career at this point in my life is gravy to me, and whatever happens, wherever it leads, I'm going to be just tickled pink about it.
So I just have to ask this question. I was going to ask it earlier, but I wanted to get the venue thing first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself ever teaching other people to write songs?
Well, I do. I mean, I think I do work with people and give them tips about this or that or the other, and I'm always happy to work in that realm. Connie Mims does a great job of that, working with people and through the NSAI, and I, whenever anybody asks me, and I'm starting to do some co-writing now, and that's great, and yeah, I'd be always glad to talk to people about how the process works for me.
Awesome. So who are you co-writing with?
Well, I've co-written with Connie Mims. I have a few people that I'm beginning to co-write. They'll remain nameless right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It ain't done yet.
No,
okay.
No, things are not done yet, but we're getting started. So,
okay. Well, I think that would be a great process. The co-creation process of in anything creative. If you find the right person to co-create with, because everybody brings their own strengths and weaknesses to whatever table there is.
Right.
So if you find people that really gee and haw,
yeah,
with the strengths and the weaknesses, I think things can go to a whole nother level.
Right. Well, I remember I had these tapes years ago by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and he talked about the Mastermind Alliance, which is a real key thing. We can't all know everything, but when you get several, and and the older I get,
the more you know that,
the more I realize I really don't know much. But I accept that with grace. But that whole Mastermind Alliance concept is a real key thing, and that's a key thing about songwriting now. Of course, Nashville makes total use of that. But in working with other people that have, you leave your egos at the door, and anytime I write with somebody, if I have an idea and we go in and they don't like any of that idea, I'm perfectly fine with that. Mm-hmm. Because if that idea leads us to something really good, who cares?
Yeah, or that my idea may come back around.
It may
3
come
months
back
later
around,
or whatever,
and you may be able to use it in something else.
Right.
But if it brings you and spurs you to think of something that turns out to be really good, well, how can you fault that? I mean, that's
Exactly.
a great thing.
And I think another benefit that a lot of people might not think of is sometimes we get, they talk about hooks in music,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes we can get, even in any creative process, sometimes we can get hooked on something that maybe really isn't the right way to go. So if somebody else can come in and say, you know what, let's set this aside and look at some other things, and then, if it's important, it'll come back.
Right.
That's the way I used to clean off my desk. Just throw everything in the trash. If it's really important, it'll come back.
Well, I have a lot of songs, for instance, that I didn't that I never really played, or I kind of finished, but then I noticed, I said, oh, I took that line out of that song and used it in something else. So I mean, it's kind of that boneyard thing, but
right.
Also that's another example of how something that done before can inspire something later. And to me, that's just really powerful, whether you're co-writing or not. But the co-writing thing, I think I'm really looking forward to doing a lot more of that.
Well, one thing I want to do real quick, because sometimes I get lost in the chat and forget the business thing. So how do people get your CDs if they want it?
Well, my CDs are available. Actually, they're distributed by Burnside Distribution Corporation. They distribute for our label. And they're available online. They're available through mytexasmusic.com, and I would encourage you to go there and order one. You can get them at my shows, and my shows are all listed on my website, www.briankalinek.com.